Officers, I remain president. Megaphone is our new VP. Natasha is our new treasurer. And Marley is our new secretary. Not exactly officers and also not exactly committee chairs. We've got 3 IT directors now, which are, to clarify, board members who are the people behind IT at ignitionnw.org. We aim to be a helpful and responsive bunch, and we are Feynman, Nonsense, and Wi-Fi. The event committee chairs, the committee chairs, we put Tuck and Wi-Fi on as our co-chairs for events. Giles and Jimmer for our co-chairs on grants. Jimmer and Marley as our co-chairs on acculturation. And at least for now, Giles is all continuity story for those, and we wanted to get out of there and not burn up the entire weekend. So we're going to handle the rest of those in Slack. Board members that were at the retreat, did I get any of that wrong as I read it just now?
Sounds
great. Okay. So the minutes will reflect that report, and let's move on. So next is liaison business. Do we have a DPW representative here? No. Stewardship, also no. Rangers, I don't see Natasha yet. We'll come back to that when Natasha shows up.
I think I might actually be the Rangers person now, since there's a board member who's also on the Ranger Council.
Great.
I don't have an update for this month. We did have our monthly meeting, but it was just very much
sort of pre-flight. Our thinking on the April 14th town hall, which we know will feature prominently conversation around our community safety approach. I guess just to kind of catch everyone in the room up, I think that, and obviously all of you on the board, feel free to contradict me if this doesn't feel right from your perspective. But I think where we landed after our discussion about this at the retreat was that we really still believe we're in listen mode at the town hall, that we really aren't prepared to pitch any sort of buttoned up anything. I think we thought that it was reasonable for us to sort of talk about principles and to provide our perspective. Willow, obviously you have a right to disagree with me either here or privately. Is really where we're at. Anybody have discussion there? Willow, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And apologies for no camera. I've been trying to connect it, but it just won't connect. It did at first, but it won't now. But anyway, I did, in some of the information that we had been brainstorming, talking about at the town hall, one of the last things that we had was the big questions. And I had actually added a note on there, not sure if you saw it, but my note was that should that big questions thing be the first thing we present? And that kind of aligns with what you're saying here. So I think, because one of the first things that we all need to understand is what the community members that we can reach out to and hear from want and need and want to see. So both, hopefully both folks that are at the town hall, and I know that we have the Megaphone is it Megaphone? Is that right? Put the poll or the survey out there, maybe a little extra effort to outreach to the community, especially those who might not be able to make it to the town hall, and make sure that we have their input. But without the community initially developed as.
Any other thoughts or discussion, questions on any of that? Okay. So just to kind of like catch everyone up or remind for those of you that have been following along closely, the process I think continues to be that the board will keep working with the RAC on thinking about what the approach could be that sort of unifies the RAC mission and charter with the Ignition organization's ongoing need to have sort of its fate in its own hands when it comes to, like if we're failing to execute on this because we're having trouble staffing our own volunteer organization, that's one thing. If we're having trouble failing to execute on this because an outside organization is having trouble recruiting and retaining volunteers, that's slightly more problematic for the organization. And like we're all one community, but also there's sort of alignment of incentives, I think, that that we need to finish figuring out. And I think most of you have heard me say before that the most probable outcome here, but it's definitely not yet a foregone conclusion, is that we end up with a conduct committee, some kind of community safety function that is technically part of the Ignition, the organization, but that we've got some carefully thought out safeguards on to make sure that we don't have, the or consolidated power within the organization managing to get in the way of our own community safety function. So think checks and balances. And we've got a reasonable amount of brainstorming put into this, but we also, again, like I'm kind of using the we voice here, but really I only speak for myself. I think that we're feeling, we've got a lot of work to do. I, for one, am excited, I guess, about having the conversation version of this at the town hall in a little under a month, and hopefully coming away with more input and maybe even some solid draft as we sort of blend the thinking that's been going on behind the scenes with the feedback and input that we'll get at the town hall. So that's what I've got on that. Anybody have anything to add or subtract or multiply or divide? All right.
Nonsense added some fireworks to the conversation. That's good.
Excellent.
Unanticipated automations.
All right. So that's that. I guess we're moving on to producer reports. Critical. Specifically, I hear y'all might have a budget draft, and I also wanted to update on contracts real quick while Reboot is unmuting. We've got